Or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Truelytics, the one and only comprehensive advisor transition management platform for the wealth management industry. My name is Mike Langford, and I'm the host of the show. And this week, I'm joined by Dan Mays from Cetera Financial Group. Dan is the Senior Vice President in charge of succession planning and business acquisition. And it was really cool to get a chance to chat with Dan because prior to planning this podcast episode, I had never had the chance to talk to Dan in person at all. So it's really neat to get to know him a little bit. I had heard his name thrown about, so it's always a neat thing to get to meet somebody for the first time. And as you might suspect, the first time we chatted, we were on Zoom, like many of you are conducting your Zoom conversations. So great to have Dan. As you're going to hear on the show, Dan's focus is on helping Cetera advisors protect and grow the value of their business, as well as helping them navigate the mergers and acquisitions landscape. So really important job for a firm that has such a large population of independent financial advisors working under its umbrella. We're also going to be spending some time exploring the firm's innovative new Legacy Builder program, which is providing Cetera advisors with a newfound level of business security that is surely welcome during this time of heightened uncertainty. So before we get started, as always, I do encourage you to make sure you like and subscribe to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast on the platform of your choice. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. You know the drill. So get out there, like, subscribe, comment. Love to hear from you. Also, please do make sure you follow Truelytics on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're active on all of those platforms. Love to have you follow. Love to have you interacting with the content that gets posted out to those platforms. And of course, if you're listening to the conversation with Dan and myself and you have some questions that pop up, please feel free to send those in. You can reach us at podcast@Truelytics, or you can swing by Truelytics.com and leave a comment there via the contact form. We're sure to get back to you and include any questions or get those forwarded over to Dan, or get back to you with our questions or get those topics you'd like to see covered on a future show as well. Okay, without further ado, let's get things rolling with Dan Mays. Well, hey, Dan, thank you so very much for taking the time out of your, what effectively is your busy work from home schedule at the moment due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're all working from home. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to spend it with us and share a little bit about what's happening there at Cetera and what you see for the future.
And thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to participate in this series. It's been something I've been looking forward to and hope that it adds value here to your audience. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I think for many of the people in the wealth management industry, they're aware of Cetera, at least by name. But for those who might not be overly familiar with the firm, other than just that naming familiarity, can you give us a high-level overview of the company and what do you do and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Cetera Financial Group, and I'll just refer to it as Cetera from here on out, is really a leading financial service and advice firm with over 1,500 employees, serving over 8,000 financial professionals nationwide. Cetera has roughly $260 billion of client assets under administration. Parts of our organization originated up to 35 years ago. Through mergers and acquisitions, Cetera has grown to what it is today. And in October of 2018, Cetera entered into a new ownership structure with Genstar, which is a leading growth-oriented private equity firm. We certainly have grown inorganically through acquisition, but also organically. But one example here recently was in 2019, Cetera successfully completed one of its largest acquisitions, which was a new business we now call Cetera Investors, which included 40 branch offices across the country. We follow a unique service model centered around communities of like-minded professionals or professionals around a common business model, such as financial institutions, tax specialists, or OSJs, otherwise known as large advisor practices. And we serve those from across the country.
That's fantastic. I first became aware of Cetera. It's interesting for me, so I didn't know much about the independent broker-dealer space until I started working for a tech company called Socialware, which was making software for financial advisors to use social media and do so compliantly. And I was the head of strategy there. And from that point on, I got to meet every independent broker dealer in the world, it seemed like. So really, really interesting to see Cetera grow over this past decade or so into what it is today. One thing that might be really interesting too is to introduce kind of who you are at Cetera and what your role there is, and maybe give people a little bit about or peek into your journey, right, to coming to Cetera. So I always call this the IMDb, Internet Movie Database overview of like who is Dan Mays and where did he come from and why is he here?
Fair enough. One of the most interesting things for me is that my grandfather actually was an advisor, a wealth manager in the profession from the 70s until the late 90s when he retired. I'm actually in my 20th year in the financial services businesses, starting first as an advisor. And I've spent the last 13 and a half years directly serving advisors in the areas of integrated wealth management solutions, business growth, and practice management consulting. The last 5 of those years have really been exclusively centered around developing resources that help advisors define and execute against continuity, succession, and business acquisition strategies that will allow them to protect and grow their organizations. To date, I've been privileged to participate in and consult with over 380 successfully closed transactions for Cetera affiliated professionals in that 5-year period. So it's been a very active and I believe productive time in serving our advisors in this area.
That's a lot of transactions. You're like the Iron Man of transactions. That's fantastic.
Well, it's a good team of people. It's part of our business consulting team. It does take a village. Succession planning is really just a small component of a broader practice management suite of resources that we provide advisors. And it's interesting that one advisor's business acquisition strategy is really another advisor's succession strategy. So we've been able to help advisors on either side of that transaction now very successfully for many years.
That's great. So, one of the things that you and the Cetera team rolled out last year that I thought was really innovative and valuable for your advisor population, and it's very much related to the succession planning and transaction space, is something called a legacy builder program. And you did that in conjunction with Trulytics. But to the best of my knowledge, it's kind of the first solution of its kind by a major broker dealer. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it is the first. So maybe you could share a little bit about what that program is and why it's so important for your advisors and Cetera at the enterprise level.
It's interesting that if we go back a few years, and even today, you'll read studies across the industry that demonstrate a majority of independent financial advisors lack a written continuity or succession plan. Prior to the creation of our Legacy Builder program, an internal survey of our affiliated advisors showed that 68% reported not having a written continuity or succession plan in place. So that became one of the major drivers of our decision to create this unique and differentiated program. And Legacy Builder is designed so that it protects an independent financial advisor's business from the potential large loss in enterprise value if a formal transition plan has not been enacted. And then there's a triggering event that would prevent them from being able to perform their duties. A triggering event for us might be death or disability. It could also be retirement. The difference is one's planned and one's unplanned. But by providing contractual assurances through Cetera that clients will be properly served, the economic value transferred to the estate or the beneficiaries, Legacy Builder removes the major barriers that advisors have in their ability to control and direct their exit plan. Combining solutions within the program include calculating firm valuations, managing unplanned and planned exits, matching the buy side and sell side program participants, as well as dedicated support from Cetera's business consulting team, really positions Legacy Builder as a full service offering that helps maximize an advisory firm's long-term value. It's really one of the most important services we provide to our affiliated advisors. It extends then through their clients and their families as well. Recent global events, Mike, really underscore the critical need for advisors to have these solutions in place. And we're committed to supporting our advisors, across this full spectrum.
You brought up the potential of catastrophic material damage to a business, right? In the event that if you don't have a succession plan in place or continuity plan in place, and you said 68% of advisors at the point where you recognize that this is something important didn't have one. That's quite the eye-opening stat because, as you mentioned, should something happen to an advisor if they pass away or they're disabled and there's no plan in place there, the value of that business can deteriorate rapidly, right? I mean, if I'm a client of an advisor and I find out my advisor passed away, the first thing I'm going to want to do is think about my portfolio and what do I do with my money. And if there's no plan in place and nobody to talk to, I'm taking it somewhere else. And if you're somebody who suddenly owns that business, like a spouse or a junior advisor, you're going to have to scramble to save the value of that business. And if somebody comes in to buy it, it would be at a fraction of the price of what it might have been worth. So it sounds like, the way that I understand the Legacy Builder program, there's a pre-negotiated arrangement to take care of those clients and also to make sure that there's a kind of baseline valuation for the business in the event of those types of things.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think that if we think about what's transpiring when an advisor passes away, there's a lot of things going on at a personal, professional, client, family. There's estate planning considerations. And without a written document that dictates what's to happen to this business and how is it supposed to transfer to a new financial advisor, if you don't have those things in place, the reality is that that's a very complex transition. Added to the fact that your family is busy trying to deal with the passing of a loved one, and they're now forced in trying to negotiate possibly the sale and transfer of a business that they might not be that prepared to do. So the net result is that a bad situation becomes much, much worse for the family. The clients have to make decisions about their own financial welfare. The difficulties that may be present in transitioning the business all result in a less than adequate scenario, right? And the result is that the value that the family might otherwise receive with a written plan can evaporate very quickly within just a matter of days or weeks after a triggering event. And so the core component of the Legacy Builder program is, as you described, it defines on an annual basis the value of the business. And the economics are defined by contractual obligations that Cetera stands ready to support. So in essence, we're able to take risk off the table for the advisors, showing them certainty on what their businesses would be worth in the event of an unplanned exit. But we've also rolled out a new component of the program for advisors looking to retire or a succession plan, which is a planned exit. And that too provides a framework for certainty and helps remove some of the barriers that might otherwise inhibit an advisor from being able to put a plan in place.
Yeah, I love this program. I've often had that conversation with advisors about father time is undefeated. And they have those conversations with their clients, right? They say to the client, hey, listen, yeah, I know you may not want to retire, right? Because it's not uncommon for an advisor to sit down with a client and the client says, retirement, I'm never going to retire. I love what I do. The reality is, as I said, father time is undefeated. At some point in time, you will stop working. Right, you will stop earning an income through your efforts, and that'll either be because you retire voluntarily or involuntarily. Right, you'll from disability or illness or inability to do the work you're doing, whether that's cognitively or physically, or frankly, the world will stop valuing what you do to the degree, and you won't get paid for that anymore. In the advisor's case, is like you will eventually have a succession in this business, and it'll either be because you had a planned succession, which is the ideal, but what Legacy Builder is protecting you against is it could be a planned succession, but the untimely timing of it, right? It happens to you suddenly, not when you expected it to happen. So I think it's a brilliant program.
I think it really helps advisors put a plan in place, much like they do for their clients, right? They do financial planning. They help walk their clients through how their retirement may look. And unfortunately, advisors aren't always able to do that for themselves. But at the end of the day, this provides additional choice. And we believe a rather elegant solution for advisors to put these plans in place, eliminate or reduce risk wherever possible, maximize the value of their business over time so that they can truly optimize and control their transition of the business when and if they're ready to do so. We're not forcing anyone out of the market. What we're doing is providing them an opportunity to control that process, as they should as a business owner.
When I hear about Legacy Builder and I think about it, it's one of those things that it's a no-brainer, right? It's like, oh yeah, of course, every advisor is going to want to do this. They're not going to hesitate to do this. But I've been in the industry since the mid 90s. And I'm always a bit surprised, although I guess at this point I shouldn't be, that in our space, not everybody moves as fast as you think they would, right? And sometimes it's just due to, it takes time to permeate and bubble through the industry. But in your experience, as you mentioned, you've been doing this for a while, working on succession planning specifically and practice management with advisors. What are some of the hurdles you see and your team have seen and what do you do to help get advisors over those hurdles?
Yeah, I really believe that there could be several factors that would contribute to this kind of scenario for financial professionals. First is that they're busy business owners that can be so focused on client service, business growth, other objectives that continuity and succession planning don't always seem as urgent at the time. As a result, you might wake up a year or two or three later without having made much progress on a succession plan. There's also a host of other issues. There might be business, legal, tax, or regulatory complexities that can be very difficult to solve for. And many advisors fundamentally do not understand the true value that their business has in relation to their other personal and professional assets. And then there's another component here too, in that I think advisors spend a career focusing on their clients and family, and they may not really be able to see or define what the next chapter of their life looks like. When they're not coming to the office 80 hours a week anymore, what am I going to be doing with my time can be a very big question that can be difficult to answer for. And so these issues and many more actually can stall plans on creating these plans, or actually cause hurdles in creating these plans, and can create a situation where advisors would find it very difficult to overcome them on their own. And that's why we believe this unique design of the Legacy Builder program, along with our consulting support, provides advisors solutions and strategies that they can overcome these hurdles. And they don't have to do it on their own. And a great example of those resources is the partnership that we have with Truelytics. Core to the offering of the Legacy Builder program is this Truelytics valuation, which helps assess the value of an advisor's business, as well as providing clear and actionable ways in which to optimize firm value over time. So, there are many more examples, but we felt that was a critical design element of our program. And we're finding advisors are very receptive to not only the program, but each of the components in and of themselves.
I'm glad you brought up the Truelytics valuation as being a core component of it, because to me, that's what makes the program shine. And I know it may sound biased because we're on a podcast produced by Truelytics, but the reality is, if you're an advisor and you're an independent business owner, you want some objectivity in the valuation. If you're entering into a program like this, you don't want it to just be Cetera says this is what the business is worth, right? You want a third party objective valuation that scores you against peer groups all across the industry, not just in one firm, because look, the firm could be biased. And even though we like to think the firms aren't biased, I think it actually really helps the adoption and the validity of the program to have that independent score.
Undoubtedly, that objective third-party perspective was critical to the design of the Legacy Builder program. We knew that as we were entering as a party to a contract with other advisors on their continuity or succession planning, we needed that third-party objective perspective. And so the Truelytics tool is critically important to our Legacy Builder program. But I would also add that you don't have to be selling your business next year to need a valuation. It's my belief and contention for many years that as a business owner, you need to have foundation, factual information, key business metrics around which you make informed decisions about the future of your firm. And the Truelytics tool provides you that opportunity. Every independent advisor at our firm has access to this tool through our enterprise agreement, and it provides you then an opportunity to understand your baseline valuation, as well as several dozen key business metrics so that you can begin to appropriately apply strategic decisions for your firm. It's much more effective long term than, I read something in the paper last week where multiples are X, so that must be what my business is worth. I think really underserves the value, the sophistication, and the true value that the organization can provide for advisors, their own firms. And this tool allows them to do so.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, you think about running a business, you need to understand how the business is performing across a variety of areas, right? It's not just how is it performing top line and bottom line in terms of your profit and your revenue and your profitability. There's a lot of other elements that go in there. And how are you performing? And then also, how are you performing compared to others in your peer group is really, really important. And as for that valuation, you know, it's really easy to dream up some quick ideas of why you might want to understand what your business's valuation is. The first one that comes to mind beyond M&A or succession planning would be raising capital. If you needed to go secure financing for whatever reason, you wanted to borrow some money to expand the business and acquire another practice to grow that way, or you needed to refinance some debt you had or take some money off the table, whatever lender is involved in that calculation is going to want to understand how much the business is worth and how it's performing in a variety of areas. So making sure you have that Truelytics scorecard, true performance scorecard up to date, and making sure you have a current valuation is going to help you with that process and have things move a little faster.
Undoubtedly.
Shifting gears a little bit, what are some of the more exciting opportunities or innovations you're seeing for the future for advisors at Cetera and maybe more broadly in the industry if you feel like taking it in that direction? Because, I know a lot of people right now, given the climate we're in, at least for the next few months or so, they're focused on the day-to-day, right? But I am first of all, I have an optimistic personality. I'm always thinking tomorrow is going to be better than today type of thought process. But I think it's really important for people to be thinking about the future, shine a light on the future, and whether that future is later 2020 or 2030. You have to keep your mind there in many ways because that old you and I are not in hockey states. You're in Arizona and I'm here in Texas, but I guess we have hockey teams here. But there's an old saying that says skate to where the puck is, right? Where do you see some new programs or innovations that are coming down the road for the Cetera team and for the advisor population and maybe more broadly?
Sure. Cetera's long-term strategy is really focused on enabling the delivery of what we call an advice-centric experience. It's times like these when clients need sound financial guidance more than ever that validate this strategy. In disruptive environments, the firms that thrive are those who lean into change, those that take bold and deliberate action. And we're accelerating the delivery of key technologies and launching new initiatives to help advisors through the current market disruption, while really setting them up to capture the market share and opportunities we expect coming out of the pandemic. Things like our Advisor Resiliency Pack, which includes new programs and consulting services, demonstrate really how we are deliberate and bold in the action we're taking as we weather this storm together. I think what sets Cetera apart from our competitors is the value that we place on relationships. Our service model enables us to quickly pivot to best serve our network of advisors and financial institutions where they need it most.
One of the things you and I talked about last week in prep for the show is recruiting new advisors into the fold and Cetera's view on growing the business, right? So you're not a stable business. In fact, you've been growing incredibly rapidly over the years. And some of that's been through M&A, but it's also been attracting new advisors into the fold. Now, I know you can't give away the secret sauce. Never would think of doing that. I ask you to give away the secret sauce. But what are your thoughts on advisor movement during this down market and times like this? Are you seeing that advisors are more open to moving or is there things you think are going to be more attractive to bringing advisors into the Cetera family? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we were ahead of the curve in identifying this advice-centric experience as the way of the future. And as mentioned, this strategy is validated in times of market disruption, like now. With Cetera, advisors get the best of both worlds. They get the resources of a large organization and the enhanced service experience of a community-oriented partner. We really haven't missed a beat, and we continue to host what we call home office visits. They're done virtually now instead of in person.
Right. It's funny. I was just thinking I wanted to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're calling them our virtual home office visit for prospective advisors, and are actively onboarding new advisors to our family of firms as we speak. Additionally, I think it's important to note that a major market disruption has always been core to Genstar's investment thesis into Cetera. And as such, our capital structure is engineered for maximum flexibility, which really leaves us in perfectly positioned to capitalize on this opportunity today.
Yeah, that's smart. I've been, championing and banging the drum on this concept of getting ready to pounce
Mm-hmm.
for actually a couple of years now, right? That at some point in time, the market will take a dip, or there'll be some events where, oh, you better be ready to seize the opportunity, right? I think for a long time, the past decade or plus, right, we've been in this bull market where free money is just being printed, where every year my business grows. And yeah, of course, the market's gone up a lot, right?
Yeah.
But now we're in a period where, guess what? The gravy train's over. Like the innovative firms and the strong, aggressive advisory firms are going to pounce and seize the opportunity. And it sounds like you're ready for that. You touched on something. It was really funny as we started teeing up this topic because of your position in practice management. I wanted to get your take, and I didn't send this question ahead of time, but I wonder if we could chat about it. Is how are you helping advisors adjust right now, or just maybe from a guidance perspective, or advising them on technology solutions or whatever? What have been some of the things you've been trying to help advisors do to adjust to this temporary new working concept?
Yeah, thank you. I mentioned our advisor resiliency pack, which was a set of resources that we rolled out very quickly in response to the pandemic and the market volatility. And it's a suite of resources that are really divided into three broad categories. Those specifically tied to the COVID-19 response. That's one category. Another is growth and development. And then the third is business management. So some key examples are being proactive in communication. Much as we're proactive in this time of uncertainty as an organization, it's important for advisors to be proactive in communicating with their clients. I think the worst thing you could do is hide in a closet to wait for this to blow over before engaging with your clients, because they need contact, they need support, they need the services that advisors can provide. And so we've been very active in helping advisors think about strategies to maximize that. And it's actually resulted in advisors growing their business. Growth and development examples are, for example, if an advisor becomes ill, we've got a program called Advisor on Demand, so that for a short period of time, while an advisor is recuperating, we have resources in-house that can step in, service their clients, and then step back out again when they're healthy and able to return back to the office. And then business management. It's things like, how does a small business navigate this virtual landscape? How do you start hosting virtual meetings with your staff and your clients? And we've been helping advisors think through those strategies, even able to negotiate some discount to some major platforms. And so those are just a few of the examples of our advisor resiliency pack that we continue to add upon, not only in response to the current events, but also as a foundation for growth and opportunities going forward.
It's a really agile approach, and I'm sure your advisor population appreciates it, and even more so, I'm sure their clients appreciate it, because it's not just the advisors who are likely feeling a heightened sense of anxiety during an event like this or a period like this. The clients, I'm sure, are also feeling some discomfort and so forth. So any mechanisms that are put in place for a better communication, or at least continuation of communication, is certainly going to help. This has been fantastic. So I'm sure many people are going to want to talk to you about this, and it could come from a variety of different places. It could be other firms that want to learn from what you're working on there, and there may be some advisors who are like, "That sounds great. I want to be a part of that." What's some of the best ways for people to follow up with you if they want to learn more?
Sure. First, I want to thank you, Mike, and Truelytics for the opportunity not only to align our resources, we feel it's a very beneficial partnership for our firms and our clients, and we're very happy for that. So thank you for that. But secondly,
Oh, my pleasure.
it's really great to be able to share perspectives in forums like these and through these conversations. So thank you for that opportunity. But I think there's three probably the best ways to learn more about Cetera or our programs is first at cetera.com, CETERA.com as our main website that has a host of information touching on some of the things that we talked about today, as well as additional resources that we didn't have time to get into. We also have a toll-free number that you can call, which is 800-336-8842. Or if you'd like to contact me directly, probably LinkedIn would be one of the best approaches. And so look in LinkedIn for Dan Mayes, Mayes at Cetera, and I'll be happy to respond to your comments or questions.
Perfect. And I'll make sure all that information you just shared gets linked up on the show notes. So when we publish this episode, if you're listening to this, whether you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Play, whatever, if you go to truelytics.com and click into the Modern Financial Advisor podcast, you'll find the show notes for this episode, and you can get all those links. Well, Dan, I really do appreciate you carving the time out and the special flexibility of working from home and recording this out of your home office. I know it's not always easy to keep the dogs or the kids or the whatever in the background quiet and sitting there with your fingers crossed that the lawn crew doesn't show up during your recordings. I appreciate the time today. I actually had that happen to me today. I was looking out the window and I saw a lawn crew pull up across the street. And I'm like, oh, please do not fire up your lawnmower right now. I don't need that noise. And it worked out well for me. So I really do appreciate it, Dan. I know it's a little bit awkward compared to what we would normally expect, but you did a great job. And I know people tuning into the pod are appreciating it as well.
No, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
All right. Huge thanks to Dan Mayes once again. He and his team at Cetera have been fantastic partners with Truelytics, and I always enjoy talking about industry innovations and trends with other leaders in the space. So I hope you enjoyed the episode as well as I did. And a special thank you to you as well. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. I know for many of us, it's a little more chaotic in our lives with kids at home and just kind of work and home life stuff kind of blending together in new and innovative ways. Let's call it that. If you have any topics or guests you'd like to hear from or about on the show in a future episode, please do let us know. We're always happy to hear from you. So swing on by truelytics.com and you can leave a comment there, or again, reach out to us via podcast at truelytics.com or via the socials. We are Truelytics everywhere. Until next time, please do stay safe and healthy. Make sure you get your emergency continuity plan set up on True Continuity. It'll help you sleep better at night, and your clients will really, really appreciate it. Heck, you might even win a few new clients by letting them know that you have an emergency continuity plan in place and you've thought of everything. You've got them covered, okay? Hope you're having a great day, and we'll talk to you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. See ya. Bye.